For the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command. Love your neighbor as yourself. Galatians 5:14. Welcome to the sermon, Out of Fear. So we're in the middle of a series around Galatians 5:14. We're not studying the book of Galatians, but we're studying why Paul came to say in chapter 5:14, the law is fulfilled in keeping this one command. Love your neighbor as yourself. So in last Sunday, we were talking about under our laws. We talk about the laws that we have inherited, that we have created for ourselves, and how our lives are like dancing depending on those laws. A lot of people relate to those things. And the problem with those laws is when those laws are not letting us live trusting in Jesus. And we're trusting more in what we establish or what we said is right and wrong, good or bad, and those things, you know. And Paul said in chapter 2, verse 20 and 21, my old self has been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. So I live in this earthly body, trusting in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Verse 21, I do not treat the grace of God as meaningless. For if keeping the law could make us right with God, there was no need for Christ to die. And that's where we stopped last time. All right? You guys ready for more? Yeah? All right. Chapter 3, verse 1 says, You foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? Before your very eyes, Jesus Christ was clearly portrayed as crucified. The first thing that we notice is the tone. All right? What if I start a sermon saying, You foolish N Valley Church of Christ? Yeah, welcome, foolish people. Why are you doing, we can see that. That's the beginning of chapter 3. You foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? Before your very eyes, Jesus Christ was clearly portrayed as crucified. So let me go from the back of that verse to the end. It says, before your very eyes, Jesus Christ was clearly portrayed as crucified. So what Paul was meaning is like, you knew what happened to Jesus. And you knew how that affected your life in a good way. You knew that he died on a cross for you. You know that you are forgiven and redeemed because of that. You know that, all right? Before you, Jesus Christ was clearly portrayed as crucified, all right? The problem is that now they are acting in a way that doesn't match with their understanding of Jesus Christ. It was clearly portrayed. It was like there's no doubt that they knew the gospel in the right way. That's what Paul is trying to tell them. Okay, you knew the things. You knew what Jesus did. You knew what he did for you. But your actions are not matching with that understanding. And I wonder, like what I've been trying to do with the other verses and chapters is like, to put it in a personal way, have I found ourselves sometimes in the middle of that tension where we understand things but we act in a different way? We know what's the right thing to do, but we don't do those things. We know we should be doing things, but we don't do those things. We understand that what Jesus did for us on the cross, and we believe in that. It's clearly for us. There's no doubt about it. But our actions are showing like it doesn't make sense. What I'm doing is not reflecting what I have received from Jesus. Have you ever found yourself in the middle of that tension? And that's the tension that Paul is finding in the church of Galatia. He's like, you understood. That's not the problem. Sometimes the problem is that we don't have a clear view of Jesus. Sometimes that's the problem. In this case, that's not the issue. They knew who Jesus was. They knew what Jesus did for them. Their actions are not matching with that understanding. So how our actions can sometimes reflect something different than what we believe, or than what we say that we believe, than what we say that we understand. It's like when it comes to explaining someone to somebody, it's like we're good about it, But when we want to show that to somebody, that's a different conversation. That's a different way to show things, Like I can explain multiple verses in the Bible. Can I show that with my life? I don't know about that, And that's kind of like the situation. The problem is not the understanding of things, which is something that we emphasize a lot in churches. And when you guys come here on Sunday sermon, you want to understand the Bible. You want to understand more, The problem over here was not with understanding. It was how your actions are not matching your understanding with the little things that you need to understand. Like love your neighbor as yourself. Is that clear for you? Yes. Well, how are our actions matching that? There's no interpretation of that. There's not like a lot of things that we can say about that. But are our actions matching with that? And then the first question that he asked is, who has bewitched you? And that's interesting. The word bewitched, the only time in the New Testament that is used is in this verse. There's no other reference for that. And it's kind of like the idea of like when someone curse you or do something like that. That's the idea behind that word. Because if you understood what Jesus did for you, but you're not acting in that way, who did it? Who has bewitched you? And I think that question is really important for them and for us. Because sometimes we're not acting in the way that we're supposed to act. And then the question comes, who has bewitched you? Sometimes we understand Jesus, we understand what he did for us, we love him, we want to live with him, but our actions are showing something different. Who has bewitched you? Because something happened. It's not normal. It's not coming from Jesus. It's not coming from your understanding from Jesus. Who has bewitched you? And in connection with what we were talking about last Sunday, that sometimes we inherited some of the laws that we have. Sometimes those laws are the ones that are bewitching us, are the ones that are confusing us, because we're following more those laws or what people where we inherit those laws told us than when we're following Jesus. And our actions doesn't match. Who has bewitched you? Who did something to you that is causing you to get to this point? And that's a good question, That's a really good question. And I don't know if there's a connection. I think there's a possible connection with verse 10. Because in verse 10 he says, "For all who rely on the works of the law are under a curse. As it is written, cursed is everyone who does not continue to do everything written in the book of the law." So he's going to mention about bewitched, and then he's going to talk about cursing. So you are probably cursed because now you're trying to obey the law, and you're in the middle of that, and you're trapped back to that now you cannot see Jesus, and you cannot act like Jesus wants you to act in a clear way. Who has bewitched you? And if you have found yourself in the middle of yes, I love Jesus, yes, I understand Jesus, but you're acting in a different way, the question for us this morning is, who has bewitched you? Who did it? And sometimes the answer is like other people, Maybe I can blame my friends. They have bewitched me because of their influence in my life, because I'm trying to follow them, because I'm trying to be with them, because I'm trying to match with them, because I'm trying to be cool with them. Sometimes it's my parents, because we don't have good parent figures. Sometimes it's other people. Sometimes it's sometimes it's our pastor. Who did it? Who has bewitched you? Who did it? Danny did it. Let's have a conversation. Who did it? And in their situation, it's clear. It's Peter. That's a rhetorical question in this case. He's like, I talked to Peter, I saw this, and now you're acting like that. Who did it? Peter. That's the answer, The question is for us, in our case, who did it? You understand the gospel, but you're not acting in accordance to the gospel. Who did something to you? You're acting different. Who did something to you? You know what you need to do, but you're not doing it. Who did something to you? Is it the influence of social media? Is it the influence of the government? Is it the influence of the world? Is it the influence of war? Is it the influences of different thoughts? Who has bewitched you? And sometimes, when I say sometimes it's people, it's this group of people, it's this situation, something that happened to me, that's what happened. But sometimes the problem, or the other problem is when the answer is me. Nobody actually did it. I just did it to myself. Because it's easy when we have someone to blame, It was my dad, it was my mom, it was this group of friends, it was because they were like pushing me, it was the group of people that were bullying me. It was sometimes it's easy to blame others. But when the answer is not others and it's just me, ooh, that's complicated. Because now I have to face the situation that I'm in the middle of this situation and I cannot blame anybody but me. You know? And we can find ourselves in the middle of that situation. Like, who has bewitched you? Me. It was my decision. It was my actions. And it was me who started all this. And it was because of my actions that I'm in this place right now. Sometimes the answer is not nobody else. Sometimes it's easier to find everybody else. Like it's everybody else. It's the world. It's the politics. It's this. It's that. But what if the answer is just you? You taken yourself to that place. Because you understood what Jesus did for you. You understood that Jesus died for you. It was clearly portrayed as crucified. That's what Paul is saying. Who did it? And what if the answer is me? You know? It was me. It was me. And I need to take responsibility of my actions at that moment. You know? I need to match my understanding of Jesus with who I am and with my actions so that it all makes sense. You know? Who has bewitched you? Maybe other people, maybe you, but something happened to you if you're not acting in accordance to the gospel that you understand. I understand that Jesus died, I understand all that, I understand the gospel. Then what's going on with your actions? Who did something to you? Verse 2. I would like to learn just one thing from you. Did you receive the Spirit by the works of the law or by believing in what you heard? And that's, again, another interesting question from Paul. You know, I like asking questions. And in these verses, he's asking a lot of questions. In this case, it's like, okay, let me ask you something. Did you receive forgiveness, grace, mercy, love by your actions? Did you receive all that because of how you behave and all the things that you were doing and all your accomplishments and all the things that you're achieving and you were achieving, and that's why like God was like, oh my gosh, this person is so great and wonderful. It's so holy and so perfect. Let me show His love to that person. Now you're forgiven. Well, I actually didn't need that, God, because I was so good, so perfect. You know? And then Paul is like, did you receive all that because of your actions? Or did you receive that because of what Jesus did for you? And if it's not because of your actions, but because of what Jesus did for you, why do you want to go back to that? Why do you want to go back and keep pursuing that style of life? Why do you want to keep living in that way if that is not working so far? You know, I have these one-on-one conversations with people, and it's like, well, if you keep doing the same, you're going to get the same results. You know, why are you still doing that? And it's because sometimes we're so hold to those laws. Sometimes we're so hold to the past. Sometimes we're so hold to the middle of, I don't know, you know. But Paul is asking, if you understood what Jesus did for you, why are you going back to that? Why are you thinking that because of your actions, now you're good with God? Did you receive the Spirit by your works, or it was by grace and mercy and love from God? Then why do you want to go back to that? Verse 3. Are you so foolish? After beginning by means of the Spirit, are you now trying to finish by means of the flesh? And I'm going to read this. I'm reading the International Version. I want to read this verse in New Living Translation. It says, how foolish can you be? After starting your new lives in the Spirit, why are you now trying to become perfect by your own human effort? And that's an interesting question. Like after you receive grace and mercy from God, not because of your actions, but because of the love of God, now you're trying to become perfect by your own actions. Now you're trying to be made righteous by your own actions. Now you're trying to find better results in your life by your own actions. Now you're trying to be a better person just by your own actions, not taking care of what God wants and what He did for you. Now you're trying to just follow what other people are doing and telling you to do, which is kind of like the situation with Galatians and Peter. They were like kind of like following what Peter was doing. Are you like trying to do that? Are you just trying to follow the flow of the world, of your friends, of the politics, of everything that is going on? Are you just trying to become perfect by your own actions? When you knew what Jesus did for you, when you understood that you received the Spirit and forgiveness, not because of your actions, because we were not worthy of that, but because of the love of God. How foolish can you be? That's what, amen? I'm not amen to that. And this is the question that Paul is asking. And let me say something in their defense, okay? Because we're critiquing them, like the Galatians and Peter. But let me say something in their defense. They followed Peter because Peter was a pretty good figure, back then. Peter was with Jesus. Peter was the one that responded, yes, you are the Messiah. And he said, like, okay, I'm going to give you the kingdom, the keys of the kingdom. Peter was the first one that stand up in Pentecost, and he preached to everybody. 3,000 people got baptized. Peter was the one that healed a person. And then he was taken to jail. The jail was open, and he went out. I mean, Peter was someone to follow to, all right? It wasn't like they were just blind and they were just trying to follow whatever the people were doing. Peter was like a pretty important person, and they might have thought, well, he probably wants the best for us, He probably wants good things for us. And if he is that figure, there's a lot of power in him. He's one of the apostles. Whatever he says, I'm going to follow him, If Peter says that now I need to be careful with this, now I need to circumcise myself and all that kind of stuff, I'm going to start thinking about it because it's coming from Peter, okay? So it's not that they were like actually foolish. Like Paul is saying, are you so foolish? Well, no, Paul. They were just like, it's Peter. They were not doing that with whatever person that was walking, And that happens sometimes in our lives. It's not that we're foolish. It's just that we're confused. It's that we think that's the right thing to do. It's that we're thinking that the people are acting in a good way. It's that we're thinking that what's going on and my friends and all that, they're doing for the best. They're doing the good for me. They're just doing all these things for my goodness, We're not that foolish, If we see something that it doesn't make sense for us, sometimes we say like, no, I don't like that. But sometimes we're so into the relationship and so into the situation that we don't see anything wrong. We just think that's the best way to do things, That's the best way to live. And that's why Paul is saying, like, are you living by what the people are saying? Or are you living by what Jesus did and said to you? What are you at right now? Are you so foolish? And that's the thing, But in their defense, they were following Peter, Like when our parents set rules and they said something, we're just following them because we thought they love us, they want the best for us, Now sometimes, and actually they love us. That's not in a discussion. Like I don't think Peter didn't love them, It was just that, and I think that what they ignore at that point is that pretty much everybody is going through something emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically. And there's a lot of things that are going on in our bodies and in our minds and in our hearts that are taking us to make decisions. And we're paralyzed for those decisions based on what's going on at that point in my life, from the experiences that I'm having right now. And like the Spirit is acting in me, the Spirit is working in me, but that doesn't detach myself from the work of my flesh and my body and how my body's working. And that's what sometimes we ignore, That people are going through something, they're saying things because they are going through something, like they are bringing their perspective in through the conversation. Like right now, maybe in 30 years, I'm going to go back to this sermon and I'm going to be like, I would have preached that, But that's the problem when you try to follow people and not Jesus. Because Jesus understands everything. He knows everything. He is God. He was in the beginning. But if you try to follow me, Because you think, well, Danny seems pretty, like a good person. I don't think he wants something wrong from us. I don't think he wants us to be in the wrong path. And if you try to follow me, at some point we're all going to fall in the same hole. And that's what was happening over here. In their defense, they were following Peter because Peter was someone. I mean, I wish Peter was here. I will follow Peter. Peter explain a lot of things that I don't understand. What did Jesus do in this case? What happened over here? I will be. And Peter say, okay, Danny, but you need to circumcise. Okay, let's do it. It's like, all right. I mean, it's Peter. He was with Jesus. I assume that he's doing something right, And that's what happens in our life when we try to follow people, Yeah, but do things. I guess he's my friend. I guess he wants me to do that, and it's because for something good. Boom. But yeah, I'll go and do this. Well, I guess that's the person that I love, and I assume that's the best thing to do. And that's the problem when we start following people instead of following Jesus, which is the situation over here. When we start trusting in other people more than what we trust in Jesus. When we trust in ourselves more than when we trust Jesus. And you see the results. It's not that I'm making this up. You have seen your life. When you have been following your rules, and just you and other people, you have seen where that has taken you. Are you so foolish? That's what Paul is asking. Now, in Peter's defense, because now it's easy also to judge Peter. How dare are you, Peter, But in Peter's defense, he grew up Jew. That was his whole life. He lived in a place, in a country, that everyone was Jew. Everyone practiced the same rituals and things and everything. They didn't go to regular school. They went to Jew school to learn the Bible. That was their school, basically. So he grew up in that way, but now the rules are changing. The things are bringing up in a different way. That's what Jesus was trying to do. So he is also in the middle of a transition that he doesn't know how to behave in one way or another. That's why he was acting in this way when he was with just the Galatians, with the Gentiles. And when the group of friends came, he was like, this is my group of friends, And what I can see in Peter is that he was acting more than out of love, he was acting out of fear. Out of fear, what are they going to say? How are they going to react? Are they going to still be my friends? Are they going to judge me because now I'm eating bacon with these people? Are they going to say something to me? Peter was acting out of fear because he was afraid of what was going to happen. That's why he was acting in one way here and acting in another way here. And that's sometimes what happens in our lives, is that instead of acting out of love, we act out of fear. And out of fear, it takes us to make decisions that are not good. So I highly believe Peter didn't want to cause that. But fear can do those things. I highly believe that sometimes we don't want to harm people. We don't want to do things that are wrong to people. But when we're acting out of fear, we can do those things. And they can harm other people. And they can hurt other people. And they can do bad things to other people because I'm acting out of fear. And now fear is not a problem, because fear is in our lives so that we can escape from danger. That's what fear is. So we can fly or do something about it. We can respond to that. But when fear overcomes love, that's when fear is a problem. When I'm acting out of fear more than out of love, like sometimes we do and other people do, that's, I think, when fear is a problem. And let me say another thing about Paul. I think at some level, Paul was also acting out of fear. At some level. Because he will call Peter out of everyone. He didn't say hey, Peter, we need to have a conversation about something that is going on. I heard that you were doing, or I saw you doing this. Let's have a conversation about that. He was not like that. He was in front of everybody. And he didn't say, hey, Peter, let's have a conversation. No, he said, you are a hypocrite. In front of everybody. You are a hypocrite. That's what he said. How dare you are. Why are you doing that? Why are you acting like that? And not only he called Peter a hypocrite, now he calling the Galatians foolish. So you can see the sense of I need to address this right now and do something right now, or something is going to happen. You know? And I thought about different possibilities out of love, like, hey, Peter, let's have this conversation. I saw this. People told me this. And maybe Peter was like, oh, sorry. You know, I didn't intend to do that. Okay, let's figure it out next time. Boom. No book of Galatians. Hey, church, let's talk about this. What's going on? Why you were following Peter? That's not right. No, you're foolish. Are you so foolish? He doesn't say it once. He said twice. You know? And I don't know if in your language saying foolish to someone else is like normal. But if you say to a person foolish, that's level. If you say it twice, that's like another conversation. He's saying it twice in a letter. You foolish. Are you so foolish? So there's also a sense of fear of Paul. Maybe fear of, what if I just let this happen and they just like destroy everything that we have talked about it? What if they just start following the law again and just go back to slavery? What if this and this can happen? You know, I need to address this right now. And he's acting out of fear. And I wonder what would happen if he like, and I'm not saying with Peter, I don't think Peter was hating them or acting out of hate. Like I don't think Paul was acting out of hate. It was just, there's a mix of love and fear that happens at the same time that take us to do things that sometimes are not good. So like I said, acting out of fear I don't think is a problem because that's a human thing. The problem is when fear overcomes love. Are you acting in your life out of fear or out of love? Are you making decisions in your life out of fear or out of love? Are you thinking, the things that you're thinking, are they out of fear or are they out of love? Are your actions, your day-to-day actions, things that you're doing, the relationship that you're having with other people, the relationships that you're having with your enemies, are they out of fear or are they out of love? Who has bewitched you that now you're acting out of fear? Who has done something to you that now it's hard for you to act out of love, but instead you become in a protective mode of like, no, this is dangerous, so I need to react in another way? Who has bewitched you? Who did it? Because whether it is you or someone else, I don't think that God doesn't want you to live in that mood of living just out of fear. Of living just out of like, this is just going to, you know, like implode. This is just going to go crazy. This is just going to, if I don't keep doing these things, then everything's just going to blow up. Then everything's just going to fall. Like, and then remember Paul's words. So are you trying to become perfect by your own actions? Now, if I do it in a different way, it's not going to, are you trying to become perfect by your own actions? If I treat these people in a different way, they are not going to respect me. So are you trying to become perfect by your own actions? If I don't do it this way, then I'm not going to have friends anymore. Are you trying to become perfect by your own actions? If that people don't think like this, then they're wrong. Are you trying to become perfect by your own actions? If I'm part of this group or this group, are you trying to become perfect by your own actions? Because God was the one that took you out of the darkness, out of that place of fear where you were like trapped in there and you didn't know how to do and what to do. He took you out of that darkness into His wonderful light, His love, so that you can live in that freedom, in that love. And He did it because of His love for you, not because of your actions. And He wants you to understand you cannot be perfect by your own actions. You're not going to be righteous by your own actions. You're not going to be like saved by your own actions. He made you perfect because He loved you so much. And He brought you out of that dark place where you were trying to do things by yourself, following these people, following this group of people, following these ideologies and this and that. And you were trying just to survive in this world, but He took you out of that place to His wonderful light so that you can be free of that. We're going to talk about that this coming Sunday. So that you can let go of those things that are taking you back to that place. That probably someone did something to you. And you don't know how to get out of that because it's so complicated, you know? Sometimes you have to like deal with a lot of things to be able to get like actually mentally out of that into this place. And that's why I think Romans 12, he says, let God transform you by the renewal of your mind. Because sometimes he took me out of the darkness, but my mind is in darkness. I think that I'm still living in darkness. I think that I'm still living in fear. I think that I'm still living defending myself and attacking, and everybody's my enemy. I still think that I need to do things in order to deserve forgiveness and mercy from God. I still think that I need to follow my laws or people are not going to respect me. I still think that this needs to be done in this way or this church is going to just fall down. He doesn't want you to live in fear, but he wants you to live in love. And he wants you to love your neighbor, and he wants you to love yourself. All right? See you next weekend. God bless you.